it's Words About Books. Also, I'm Nate. Also, we're talking about Boring New World by Aldous Huxley. Huckleberry Finn. I don't care, Ben. You take over from here. That was my contribution for this episode. Let me go take a nap.
So, we're doing Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. And I think most people will have heard of this book. This is a school book. This genre was your
Patreon.
idea.
No. A patron suggested it and I rolled with it. And then we voted
so a
on the
patron
book.
suggested that we do school books. I don't think they knew what they were getting into, or maybe this is exactly what they wanted. I have no idea.
It's a punishment.
But to tease the Patreon a little bit, we just released a bonus episode in this vein where we covered Lord of the Flies, and one or both of us may have actually read the book. You decide. If that sounds interesting, go to our Patreon and give an amount of money. I don't know. I don't keep up with the tiers. So I didn't become a bookman for the money. If it were up to me, the bonus episodes would be free. We have argued about this. I keep trying to give them away and Nate won't let me. I need somebody to see my Armada episode.
No can do, Ben.
But yeah, so we're doing school books. So this was a book I think I put on the poll because this is one of the only books I read while I was in school. I had one English teacher I liked. One English teacher in the whole of English teachers. And I think he was the one that assigned this, so I might have read it. And again, in the spirit of the school books episode, I did not reread it for this episode. So I'm going based on my knowledge of when I was in high school, which, if you have not paid attention to any other episode, or my age, was 2006.
Half your lifespan?
Yeah, 2006. What is that? 16 years ago? 15 or 17 years ago?
One of those.
Yeah. So, yeah. So that's the memory we're working with. But don't worry, I'm pretty good with books. You guys know. So
Yeah.
First, we're going to do an about the author. I did research Aldous Huxley for this, though I did not reread the book. I spent a lot of time digging into his background, and I was kind of surprised by it. So I think Brave New World came out in the 30s, right? And Huxley died in the 60s, and he
Just
lived
in time
long
to see
enough.
his empire fall apart. Fuck yeah.
You're going to keep talking about the British Empire. So first off, he lived in America for like most of the time.
And yet he thought that the Brits were going to rule the world.
I don't
Wrong
think he
again.
did. I think there was a world government. He thought the world
centered
would be
around
ruled by
London. Yeah.
Okay.
Empire's
I think that was
in
just
decline, buddy.
I mean, he left. He knows. He moved to L.A., I think.
Yeah, he moved to the winning country.
I think he actually became a screenwriter briefly.
Oh, I respect him even less now. Jesus.
So in the 30s, he writes this book. He would live long enough to become a hippie. Isn't that fun? I didn't know that.
It is kind of funny, yes.
He gets super into Eastern religions, specifically Hinduism. I forget which particular denomination, for lack of a better word, he got into, but he got really into the Vedas. But like every good hippie, he wasn't as into like adopting the religion proper. He was kind of into taking like the mystical stuff and like
being
the
really
fun
annoying
stuff. Yeah, and just taking that. So a big part of Hinduism, Buddhism, a lot of those, most religions actually, now that I think about it, is not big fans of taking a bunch of substances that alter your consciousness. generally encouraged sobriety, discipline, meditation, focus. And he was there for the meditation and the focus. He loved anything that was like transcendental. But he also really liked mescaline. And then he really liked LSD. And he has written a book about his experience. And in the most stoner thing I have ever heard, he wrote a book about his hallucinogenic experiences. I forget what it was called. And then later, he did more drugs, and he was like, I've had even better experiences since that book, man. Anytime anybody would talk to him about it. And his last words were instructions to his wife. He died of throat cancer, so he had to write them out. And they were, now you tell me, it looks like a mu. Is that like the mu letter and then U? What is that measurement?
If that is what it was, then maybe he's doing micrograms.
Maybe.
I mean,
he asked
normally you write MC anymore.
He didn't.
But
I don't think he wrote MC, but I think he wrote 100.
It's possible he wrote mu.
I think he wrote 100 mu, LSD intramuscular, and that is how he wanted to die, in another dimension. So, she gave that to him, and then she gave him another dose later, and then he died, and that was how he
should take it right into your veins, pansy. God.
I don't know anything about LSD. I have an anxious brain that I do not think would do well on hallucinogens. As much as I'm interested in the experience, I would love to travel to another dimension. I don't do well on long flights. So I think I might struggle with a trip like that. But all this goes to show you that there's kind of two, at least when I was in high school, two main like dystopian things that you could read, and they were 1984 and Brave New World. And in the English class I was in, they were presented as kind of two competing visions of how humanity might lose itself. And of course, you have 1984 with George Orwell, with the ultra like rigid fascist state that's trying to control every aspect of everybody's lives. They're being watched at all times, and then everybody who reads that book thinks he was describing the person they don't like.
Yeah,
so like if you're a communist,
that's just modern day America, man.
But then there's Brave New World, which is kind of a you kill them with kindness sort of thing. Huxley envisioned a world where it is our consumerism and our shallowness that ultimately undoes us.
That's just modern day, man.
And the answer was both. We can have it all, guys. We can have fascism and rampant consumerism.
Yeah,
all for the glory of the state.
Exclusive, yeah.
I think that was the challenge, is they're not mutually exclusive. Like I remember in 1984, George Orwell is like, oh yeah, you got to go on the black market to buy shaving razors, even though every guy obviously shaves, so everybody's using the black market. But then it's in Brave New World, they're like, we got to create games with elaborate apparatus. We need to sell the new Joy-Cons that have better motion sensing, or you're not going to be able to play Wii Golf. And while we're at it, we need to sell you a little golf thing that makes the Joy-Con look like a golf club. It adds nothing to the game, but you'll know that you spent $60 on a plastic mold for a Joy-Con.
Yeah, but they do that on the genetic level, so it's like really dumb.
Yeah, it gets
Or they do it, or they're like, we conditioned you since birth because we're trying to make you take trips to the countryside so that we can sell you timeshares or whatever the fuck stupid thing it was. But then it was like, but we came up with another solution to condition you to do this other thing. It's like, okay, I'm gonna take a nap. You just finish up, dude. Tell me more about your boring fake science lesson. I'll be over here.
If I can find it, I actually stole my copy of Brave New World from high school, and I think I still have it.
Nice.
Well, I didn't steal my copy. I turned my copy in, and then I waited until another guy had turned his copy in, and I stole his copy off the pile. It's okay. I didn't like him.
Then he had to pay the school.
No,
back.
I don't think he did. I think it was the perfect crime because I think they had already registered and counted it, and then I took it. They made the mistake of leaving out the piles of registered and counted books, so I think that one just disappeared.
I think that they didn't imagine anyone would actually want to steal.
You had better believe they did not imagine that.
Yeah. They're like,
no, this
I could leave this just out unlocked in a big pile where anyone could steal it. I think all those copies are staying here.
I have a confession, Nathaniel.
Oh God.
I didn't get a yearbook.
Oh my God.
I didn't get a yearbook when I left high school, but I did have friends. And so I just stole a bunch of textbooks. And I had people sign those.
Why?
I still have a French textbook that has a bunch of like my friends' messages to me.
Why did you not just get a yearbook, Ben?
I was protesting it.
Were you, or did you just forget the deadline?
No, I was protesting it. I was like, I don't care about that. That is what everybody does. All the conformists get a yearbook. I'm not going to get a yearbook.
I got a yearbook without even going to that school.
I didn't want them to decide on what my memories were. Okay? I don't want you yearbook people taking my pictures. I'm going to create my own memories. And my memories are I know exactly which kid's book I stole. But you know what? That's the only reason I remember his name. I have forgotten just about everyone from my high school class. I am in contact with none of them. I'm not on Facebook. I have no idea what happened to any of them or what most of their names were. But I remember, and I don't trust you to bleep it, so I'm not going to say his name. Because I don't want them coming after me. But yeah, that's why Brave New World was on this list. So I told Nate, since I didn't reread it, I'll go ahead and do the summary because what could go wrong?
Yeah,
and Nate can helpfully interrupt me this time.
And I told you that I was going to lean pretty heavily on you because I started out listening to the audiobook, and then my mind just kept wandering, and I found myself just constantly turning the speed up, just over and over again. Every few chapters, I'm just like, oh my God, are we done yet? Have you reached your point and your conclusion? Can we just be done? I looked up a summary online, and at that point I was like, I bet I could listen to 2 times speed.
So
yeah,
if I assume you're going to agree with this, then I was going to ask if your initial perception of the book matched mine, which was Aldous Huxley, again, like most hippies, is kind of an idea man without a lot of follow through.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no. I asked several people, hey, you read Brave New World, right? Like my wife. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, does it ever become, like, less boring? They're like, no. I was sad then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you're asking me which of the 2 competing dystopias is the better book, it's 1984. But I didn't read that in school. I read that on my own, so it didn't count for this. Brave New World, basically here's his idea. And he had this idea and then had to build a story around it if he wanted to publish a novel. His idea is that all this new technology is coming out, right? It's 1930. The world is booming. We just had the greatest war that there will ever be. There will never be another one like it. And things are just awesome now. We got Henry Ford making
stock market
the assembly
crash.
line. He's making the assembly line. You can have whatever car you can have whatever color you want as long as it's black. Henry Ford, everybody loves him. And he made the assembly line. And now everything's an assembly line. All the crafts are gone. All the tradespeople are put out of work. Everything is uniform, clean, industrialized, efficiency. And at the same time, women can vote. And there's flappers, and there's jazz music, and
disgusting.
Society's morals are finally like catching back up to the Roman Empire, I guess. Like people are finally free to kind of be people again.
Did you see how scantily clad those flappers were, Ben? They were wearing dresses that only went down to their ankles.
Some of them got kind of scantily clad.
I've seen worse.
Okay. There's some flappers out there that are pretty all right. Nobody's saying that about Victorian clothing, though. Like, you could still go, okay, I'll put it this way. Spirit Halloween, they got a sexy flapper costume. Spirit
Where's
Halloween...
my sexy Victorian English.
Yeah, there is no sexy Edwardian like bubble gown. I don't know what the hell they are.
That's
dome
where they
skirts.
Yeah, the sexy version of that is where they hike it up a few inches. You can see some of that sweet, sweet ankle and maybe part of the lower leg. Yeah.
So anyway, Huxley's seeing all this stuff and he's like, what might it be capable of? It's the old Lovecraft problem. These flappers, man. Where does it all end? Where does it stop? And so he thinks like, I bet one day they're not even going to let us have families anymore. That's how bad the family values are getting. They're not even going to have families anymore. And that's another thing Orwell attacks. That's the thing a lot of people are afraid of, is like the family unit is going to collapse. And I don't know that many people that had an amazing family unit. I just don't understand this experience. Like sometimes I do think human beings might be better off if they were raised in like creches. Like just given to a group of people who know how to raise a child. What if they weren't just given to like every meth addict and like every alcoholic, and like you could just give them to somebody who knows how to raise kids, like somebody who knows psychology or like nutrition. But I guess I'm part of the problem. I mean, that's always been the case.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're part
so
of the
what if it
problem.
goes further? You know,
Can't believe you do that to traditional family values, Ben.
Yeah, the traditional family. Nothing healthier, nothing more supportive than the traditional family.
Exactly.
So,
what could go wrong?
So the first 3 chapters of this book, I know it's the first 3 chapters because I didn't read it, but I did flip through it. They're kind of the whole thing. Like, this is kind of like...
Yeah?
This is the sort of thing that maybe should be like told... Ooh, sorry, I bumped my mic. This is the sort of thing that should maybe be told like a little bit at a time, slowly revealed, allow you to take in. Because really, the horror of the world is...
Lecture. We're going to have a lecture.
The horror of the world is the whole point. But he just gives it to you right up front. We're going to have it
conveyed in the most boring way possible, too. We're just going to talk about like it's a science lecture, Ben.
So there are 5 castes of humanity in this brave new world. They now genetically engineer humans to fit the task they are to do.
And sometimes they put a little bit of alcohol, give them the fetal alcohol syndrome for some reason.
Yeah. So at the top, and this is one instance where Huxley was maybe not so forward thinking, because he describes alphas as being like the intellectual elite.
That's
the leaders
what we
of the
are,
world.
Ben. That's what I think of when I think of Alpha Chad.
That's what alpha. You know what? That is what alphas think of when they think of alpha. They're the smartest, the prettiest, the best, the most stunning physical specimens. They are the creme de la creme. We don't need very many of them, but
We are the reason everyone else even exists, Ben.
okay. When I close my eyes, nothing happens in the world. Then you got the betas. They're like alphas, but a little less. Not bad deal. Not a bad deal to be a beta. You get a pretty cushy job. You're like upper management, you know? Vice presidential material. A real, I was going to say Joe Biden, but then
He decided to break out of his beta role.
that's what
Or we
happens when a
decide
beta
to
tries
just-
to become an alpha. You get a Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Barack Obama was the real deal. Joe, he just should have been a professional vice president.
Yeah.
Should have just
Yeah,
ran
he-
for vice president again. But then you've got gammas. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really remember the difference between gammas and deltas, but this is where it starts to suck. Gamma, you're getting into like, nobody likes these guys. They're kind of like the blue collar types. Delta, you're getting into like, they're a little deformed, and we're using.
I wasn't joking
fetal
when
alcohol.
I said that exactly. They
Sin-
put alcohol in
Yeah.
their womb for some
They,
reason.
they deprive them of oxygen to stunt their development. Again, this is like a Lovecraft thing. Huxley read about that somewhere and was like, what might it be capable of? Not to conflate Huxley with Lovecraft. Huxley was an outgoing person and by all accounts just kind of annoying to talk to, but otherwise okay.
He wasn't a horrible racist with a horrible racist dog or cat or turtle or something.
You know, I listen to Nuzzle House, and he has this recurring problem because he does public domain stuff where almost everybody's some kind of terrible person in the public domain. And not even like by the standards of aging. So every time he picks up an author, he's like, he gets halfway through the book and he's like, oh, they did this terrible thing. So I can't guarantee Huxley is not a terrible racist. All I can say, to give you the idea what kind of guy he is, he got in with an Indian guy who he talked about the Vedas with and exchanged a lot of ideas. And when he told the Indian guy about all these like LSD acid trips he was taking and the deep, meaningful significance of them, and the Indian guy was like, yeah, that's not really how that's supposed to work. Huxley was kind of like, I think you might be wrong. I'm pretty sure I had a really deep spiritual experience, and I'm pretty sure everybody who's doing meditation should be doing acid if they really want to unlock the chakras or whatever. And yeah, he mansplained a little, but
Spiritual.
So then you got the
explained.
yeah, he white-splained, I guess.
There you go.
He white-splained Hinduism to an Indian guy. So, then you got epsilons, and that's the worst.
Gross. Disgusting.
Epsilons are super deformed. I think they're also dark-skinned or black.
Ooh. Oh,
yeah.
dear.
I mean, I assume I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that was a criticism because they're engineered to be that way. So that's just like the baked-in racism of this world government. We're going to assume that this is a commentary on racism. But I suppose there is another interpretation of it that I'm not going to get into. Anyway, so the first 3 chapters is somebody explaining this like made-to-order human situation. We got the human factory, and it's not just the the breeding or the genetic engineering. They also like do all this weird like psychological crap because psychology is a new discipline at this time. They're teaching them to be like overly sexual, to be overly comfortable with sexual contact. Grooming, you might call it. Maybe Huxley predicted that. I guess grooming's been going on since the dawn of time, but I was uncomfortable. That's an uncomfortable scene. Weird to read in high school in front of a class. Like,
Yeah.
as you're like, who wants to read next? You read this part. You look like you would. And, yeah, and they're showing all this to kids, like the alpha beta kids. They're taking them on a tour of like, this is how the people get made, and we just factory order them. We manage the population. We decided on the optimal number of people. We know exactly how many we need, and there's like an earthquake or something, if I remember correctly, and a bunch of people died, and so they just whip up a new batch and send them out. And basically, you're not encouraged in this world to develop attachments to other people. You're encouraged to associate freely. You're encouraged to have sex with as many people as you possibly can. Almost everyone is... Are you okay? Did that take your breath away?
I can't believe such a thing, Ben.
Clutch your pearls a little bit while I describe this next part.
Okay.
So, most people aren't even fertile. Only a handful of people are kept around with like active reproductive organs as like a standby or...
That means they won't use protection, Ben.
Well, I imagine there's still a bunch of STDs. Possibly more than ever. And also, I don't know when this gets explained. Nobody gets old. I mean, they age, but we have enough plastic surgeries and skin treatments and such that you never look old. You're dead on the inside. Your organs are failing, but you look great.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I could believe that's what passes as medicine. Like, we don't need to treat syphilis because by the time it gets you, I got another one of you ready to go. Like... And that's like the kind of dark thing you could really like explore in this world, but he didn't think of that because he didn't care, because he had the idea and then he wanted to move on. So there's if you feel feelings, if you get sad, we got a fix for that. It's called soma. This is one of the most referenced things in pop culture from this book that I remember. I've seen this in a bunch of places. So they got soma. It's like a little, like, I don't know, candy or something you could pop, I think. I think you eat it, right? And it just takes all the bad feelings away. It's just good vibes. It's just a good vibes chocolate bar.
You're about to go on a trip.
You know that soma is an actual medicine.
Is it? Does it work?
It's
Does
a
it do
muscle relaxer, though.
that? Oh,
And like
fuck.
one of
Do you eat
the
it?
addictive ones.
Do you eat it?
You swallow it like a normal pill.
Oh. Can I bake it into a brownie? Why aren't we using this?
Because there are better ones that are not as addictive.
Okay.
Well, it looks
Note
like
to
it didn't
self.
come out until 1959, so maybe they named it after
They
this guy.
named it after the fictional dystopian drug. Wonderful. Somebody looked at this and was like, hey, that's like that book I read that one time. These people look like they're just incapable of unhappiness right now. And their muscles are relaxed. So yeah, they do that. They also teach they also teach the lower caste kids to be like stupid just in case some of their brains survived the birthing process. They also condition them to like hate culture.
Yeah, you know what's easier than that? Just making a machine.
Yeah, well, and that's what we...
What if we replace like I'm just gonna throw one out there. Coal mining jobs with machines, Ben. Can you imagine a world like that?
But then what would the coal miners do?
Exactly. What would they do other than complain about their coal mining jobs going away?
Our story eventually begins, but at this point I got to tell you, Huxley is really counting on you being mind blown by everything I just described. Did I tell you that these people do drugs and have orgies?
Orgy porgy, Ben. Did you know that they
There's
teach you in your sleep by just repeating the same thing over and over again, which is exactly how that works? Don't question it. He's a psychology genius.
At the time, he probably was. That was cutting edge science. Don't look back on him negatively. Somebody, I guarantee you, in 1930, an actual psychologist told him that was a thing.
Yeah,
but he does come up with all
Freud.
these. Yeah, he does come up with all these like cutesy names for shit. Orgy porgy, centrifugal bumble puppy.
I don't even remember that one. Like I said, I was just blowing past this.
Basically, you're supposed to be shocked by this. You need to be like thrown off kilter. This needs to be the edgiest thing you've ever read. And in 1930, I think it was. I think it probably was. But in 2023, this isn't even the most depraved thing I've seen today.
Yeah, who gives a shit?
Yeah. So when the story finally begins, you kind of like most of these dystopian world stories are kind of slowly revealing to you like just how bad it is and just how deep it goes. And this one just starts right off the bat with like, this is all the ideas I have for a dystopia. Now I've got 150 pages to fill. So
I know. How about we use the word savage an uncomfortable amount of times to fill the page?
he does refer to American Indians as savages, which is very British of him. I guess maybe at the time very American.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't there, but we'll get to that. So we got three main characters? I think we got. And I'm not going to remember their names. There's Linnea Quigley and Bernie Mac and Helmholtz. Something very German. It's a name that conveys a mustache.
Who are these?
Am I close? Do you know the names? Who are the three main characters?
I like Bernie Mac. That was good.
I was close. I'm looking it up now. Okay,
One
so
is
you got
Marx.
Lenina
That's
Crown.
our ugly person. There's a lady.
Lenina Crown is the lady. Bernard Max is
Marx.
the ugly guy.
Marx.
Or Bernard Marx, sorry.
Yeah.
And Helmholtz Watson.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say John, the native man who.
No, I'll get to John. We'll get to John.
Yeah.
So this is the dynamic. This is our sitcom trio, right? Lenina, I already
Minus
forgot
the
her
com.
name.
Yeah.
I already forgot her name.
Just call.
Leni-
There's Marx, there's lady, and there's guy number 2.
There's legs, ugly, and the mustache.
There you go.
So Lenina, her deal is she's dumb and she likes to sleep with people.
Wow. Oh my God. I bet she's over there just destroying family values, Ben. I can't believe that.
So here's the thing I think they were trying to go with for her. I remember very clearly my high school English class talking about this. So she's ditzy, but she's in this like monogamous relationship at the start of the book, and that's weird, right? For the society, that's almost transgressive. Why is she withholding her affections? It's almost antisocial to not have sex with somebody. It's like a handshake in this world.
Yeah.
You just touch genitals to say hello. And she's not doing that, so everybody thinks she's very rude. So her friend's telling her, like, you got to get with somebody else, you know, or people are going to start to think you're weird. And she's like, well, I am kind of into that ugly guy. And she's like, her friend's like, I don't even know where to begin with you. You're all backwards.
I am kind of into that ugly guy. Quote on the front of the book.
And, yeah, so she's into Bernard. Bernard is actually antisocial. He doesn't relate well to people. He fancies himself an intellectual.
Is there a reason his last name is Marx, Ben?
Is there?
I don't know. Is there?
I mean, obviously a Karl Marx reference, but, like, he's not a socialist. He's a capitalist.
But he fancies himself an intellectual, and he's an antisocial douche.
And he owes people a lot of money, and he came up with a whole economic system to tell them why he doesn't actually. One day we'll do the Communist Manifesto. That's another college book. I'll tell you what my political philosophy professor thought of that. I went to the one college that had a libertarian political philosophy professor. Okay, so where were we? Marx. I don't think that means anything, but Marx is kind of like, so Bernard and Helmholtz, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Helmholtz is kind of the real deal in terms of, like, intellectualism. Helmholtz is kind of a nonconformist intellectual, but he's a very attractive man. He's stuck in some, like, dead-end writing job where he's basically writing BuzzFeed articles, but he wants to be writing, like,
because he's not around enough misery, Ben.
Yeah.
He's a fucking whiner. That's what he is.
Whereas Bernard is an actual whiner. Like, Helmholtz actually has ideas and stuff, but Bernard is just, like, ugly and angry about it. Like,
he is unusually ugly, yes.
Well, yeah, and he's, like, small for his cast. So, like, everybody's genetically engineered, right? But he's, like, the genetic engineering is, like, a 99.9%, like, nail it every time. He's the 0.1%. He's just a little, like, he was, the guy left him in there just a little too long.
You're a beta, but you're giving me some real gamma vibes, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. And so he doesn't want to go to any of these sex festivals or anything. He's not into that conformist bullshit. He's in to, like, long walks on the beach. He wants to get to know you. He wants to know who you are. He's a nice guy. Oh God, he's a nice guy.
He's a nice guy, yeah.
Yeah, Bernard is the ultimate nice guy. So, yeah, I have no idea how this starts to happen, but he gets, somehow he gets, like, tickets to go to an Indian reservation.
Yep.
And he offers to take Lenina, even though at, like, this point in the book, even I know that's a bad idea. She's not going to be into it. So the Indian reservation, I guess this world government respects Indian reservations' sovereignty a lot more than the actual U.S. government does.
Well, yeah, because this is the one world British government, Ben.
Yeah. Somehow, they've remained untouched. They're allowed self-government. They don't have to do any of this stuff. They can have families. They can exist
have
in nature.
Natural-born kids. Ew, gross. They get pregnant, Ben.
Yeah. And so
I almost
There's
threw up
this
in my mouth just talking about it.
I'm fine. I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
I mean, it is kind of like legit though. Like legit though, the whole process of pregnancy is like low key disgusting. So, I mean, it's
to
like the
organic
vat,
life.
but it's in a. Yeah, it's like the vat, but it's in a person. I don't. Again, I'm part of the problem, I guess. Aside from the weird caste system, which I guess is inevitable in this sort of thing. So, okay, you sold me on birth again. I'm back around. Never mind. So, the director. I forgot about the director. He's got a boss, right? Bernard's got a boss who doesn't like him,
Yep.
and his boss tries to talk him out of going to this reservation because he's like, "Oh, it sucks. I was there like 20 years ago. I went with this lady. She got lost, and I had a lunch meeting, so I had to go. We looked around for a minute, but the bus was leaving, so I got on and never saw her again. But that's my point. Is like it's so boring. You can actually just forget you had a date.
Oh, you're describing this in a much more interesting way than the book actually is. But yeah, you're not wrong.
So they go to this reservation, and they're there for 5 seconds, and wouldn't you know it, they find the girl who went missing all those years ago, and she's old and she's fat now because she doesn't have access to their free health care, which is what happened to me. That's what happens to every American. We just get old and fat while Europe stays young and beautiful forever. Macron is like 70 years old. He's actually the same age as his weird wife. Actually, I think they got divorced. Speaking of high school teachers, he dated his. Moving on. So, yeah, that's a little fun fact about the French. I'm coming after everybody now. You know what? We picked on Britain for a long time, but I'll give Britain this. France got some demons. So so they find the girl. I don't know her name at all.
Linda, I want to say Linda. Yeah, Linda.
So they
I'm
find
looking at
Linda. She's old and she's old and she's fat now, and she's got a kid. He's this and this is like a bad 1930s trope. He's like this strapping young white man.
Yeah.
Standing out against a non-white population.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, we found him. He taught himself how to read with only 2 books. The Idiot's Guide to Test Tube Babies and The Complete Works of William Shakespeare.
So stupid.
I'm going to be real with you. He seems to have leaned a lot more heavily into the William Shakespeare than the science book, because this kid is annoying.
God, I'm so glad he's dead. Spoilers.
And that's why the book is called Brave New World, because Shakespeare said that, I think.
Yeah, whatever.
Presumably, this kid knows what they're talking about. So. They talk to John, and Bernard sees an opportunity for a good old-fashioned 1930s freak show. He's like, okay, John Old, may I call you John? You should come back with us. And John's like, I would love to. I would love to see this brave new world that my mother speaks so highly of, what with its many orgies and droogs. And so he gets on while the guy's there, Bernard finds out that the director wants to transfer him to Iceland.
Which is funny, because Iceland defeated the United Kingdom in 3 straight wars after World War II. So.
I was like, are you counting the ones where they just kicked their ass over? And well, I guess that was Denmark, but...
The Cod Wars, where every time it would be a bunch of ship ramming, followed by Iceland saying, I'm going to pull out of NATO, and the U.S. going, hey, Britain, just do what they want. Yeah, I care more about Iceland than I care about your fishing rights around the island of Iceland. So,
Why did we care more about Iceland, though?
because of its location in the North Atlantic, Ben.
Next to what? England?
We also cared a lot about Greenland. It has to do with like shipping lanes and something else. I think there's like a
Look,
early
I know
warning
America.
for nukes or something. Look, I don't remember all the specifics.
Look, I know
but
America.
I also
know
would
how our
value
foreign
Iceland
policy
over
works.
UK. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
I know how our foreign policy worked. We just wanted a volcano. We just wanted an active volcano in NATO. That's all this is.
Yeah, well, hey,
But anyway,
if the
if you're
United
asking
Kingdom
me-
wants fishing rights around the Icelandic around the island, they should come up with their own volcano to get it. How about that, Ben? You blow up part of your island, and we'll give you all the fishing rights that you want.
well, Wales just detonates immediately. So anyway,
It would be Wales too.
of course it would be Wales. Everywhere else has stuff we like. I can't even read the signs there. Anyway. So he's going to get sent to Iceland, which me personally, if I could get a visa to Iceland, I'd be gone tomorrow. But for Bernard, I guess that sucks because he had a lot going on in London. I don't know, with what, nobody talking to him or anything. But so he gets back and he walks into his boss's office, and his boss is right about to lay the smackdown on him. He's about to go, "I'm about to Iceland you." And as soon as he opens his mouth, he lifts his finger and opens his mouth, Bernard is like, "You know what I found while I was out there? Meet your illegitimate son." That's right, you have a son. That's a sin in our society.
Disgusting.
Yeah, oh my God, he's got a kid. Oh my God, he's a father.
He had
Oh my
sex
God.
and had a kid from that sex. The
Egg-touched sperm. Oh my God, that's like...
Ew.
Yeah, no, that's so gross. And so he just has to resign in shame. That's disgusting.
Yeah. He's a disgusting
I feel like that one
piece
kinda-
of shit.
I feel like that one kind of goes over John's head, though. I don't know.
Okay,
Like, does
bye,
he
Dad.
care
I'll
that
see you
he's
later.
Yeah. It's not time for you to be depressed yet.
Yeah.
So, John does the rounds, right? Bernard is like John's manager guy, and he's like showing John around because John is a freak, right? He's somebody who was raised around uncivilized, quote unquote. This is the book's words, not mine. Uncivilized
Come
people.
see
And,
the native savage. Woo! Pocahontas all over again. Come see this
wouldn't it be
weird...
funny if John brought smallpox back with him or something? He just wiped him.
That would have been awesome, but that's not the book we got, Ben.
No, so John's a freak show. At some point, John winds up talking to Helmholtz, and they get along. Whereas Bernard, this is where we find out Bernard is just a total sellout. So he was this nonconformist, whatever, because he was too cool for school. But it turns out he was just ugly. Because as soon as he has John, people want to talk to him, and he's all about it. He gets with all the girls. He shakes all the hands. He loves it. He loves everybody. He loves the society. What are you talking about, nonconformity? Conformity is amazing. But Helmholtz, he's kind of the real deal. Like I said, he's talking to John. He's like, "Oh, yeah, Shakespeare. I like Shakespeare, too. I'm something of a writer myself." And John's like, "It's just so weird around here how, like, everybody's having orgies all the time." He's like, "I just kind of want to settle down with a nice girl and, like, buy a farm or something with a white picket fence." And Helmholtz is like, "Well, that's fucking gross, buddy. I don't get into, like, weird alternative lifestyles. But Shakespeare, yeah, he's cool." And,
In this world, on the internet, you go to Pornhub, and it is just families settling down and enjoying a meal together and saying goodnight and I love you, and it's like, gross.
Oh, can you believe they're allowed to post this shit? Oh my god. I bet they have to film that in Iceland.
Iceland family porn. It's the new.
It's the new step siblings. So, okay. What happens next? John stops complying. He slowly starts to get burnt out on the city. I think at some point Linda just straight up ODs. She gets to come back too, and she's so happy to be back, but nobody's happy to see her because she's old and fat, and they don't like that. It reminds them of mortality. So yeah, she dies, and John's sad, but nobody else is sad. Nobody really gets why he's sad. And in fact, this actually made me laugh when I read it. I remember this scene. There's something like, there's a tour group of like kids that they're taking around the hospital to show them like, this is to desensitize you to death because you're not allowed to be sad. And they're like, look at this fat old lady who's dying. And they're like, wow, she's old and fat. And John's like, this is my mother. Please. A moment. And they're like,
again, you're
like, who's this
describing it
bitch?
so much better. Like, oh, wow, she's old and fat. It's like, jeez.
You know, like I said, this is like Dune, you know? Give it a
like,
couple of years, the man just
everything-
whittles it down to the gems.
Imagine what Ben is saying, except like 50 times longer and told to you by your most boring high school teacher.
Well, so
That's
this
what
is going
this
to be
is
like an hour and 30-minute podcast. I don't know how long the book would be,
Oh, so
but
much
probably
fucking
10 hours
longer.
at least. Yeah.
Even on
So,
over 2 times speed, it was too long, Ben.
So, at some point, John not showing up becomes an issue. And, like, Bernard has lost control of the situation. John decides to do that thing people, like, the only way I could think to describe it is John is a YA protagonist, but YA hasn't been invented yet. So they're just like, no, you can't do that. He tries to start a revolution, and everybody's just like, just stop. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Oh, he tries to steal some soma or something. He tries to throw out their soma. And everybody's like, but dude, I was going to smoke that.
Yeah.
Stop throwing away my soma. And John's like, I'm going to throw away your soma. And they're like, if you throw away my soma, I'm going to hit you. And he's like, well, I'm throwing away your soma. And he throws away their soma. And then they just hit him. And it's like, that's the closest to a riot this society's ever gotten. And the director is not happy about that. And or not the director. Who's the big boss? What's the big boss's title?
God damn it. Resident World Controller for Western Europe.
Okay. So the resident world controller for Western Europe calls Bernard and Helmholtz in. Somehow Helmholtz got mixed up in this. And he's like, you guys have lost control of John. And because John tried to start a riot and you were his PR representative, I'm sending you both to Iceland. John can stay. He's cool.
Yeah.
And,
fuck you, John. I'm too invested in how this is going to turn out for you. Probably bad.
Yeah, so Helmholtz is like, he's okay with going to Iceland because that'll give him a chance to work on his novel.
Yeah. He's not pretentious
And,
at all.
He's got a mustache.
He's going to find a Panera and he's going to just tell you about all the cool ideas while eating a mac and cheese.
I had this idea for a book about a world where fish swim in the sky and people walk in the water.
Jesus Christ. You're going places, kid.
I'm calling it Brave Fish World. So they fuck off, and
And that's the end of them. Bye.
yeah, I think that's pretty much their arc.
Yeah.
Lenina, I honestly don't remember what happens to her. I don't think things work out with Bernard. Oh, she keeps trying to fuck John. That's what happens with her. Okay, now I remember. Yeah. No, this is important.
Yeah.
I forgot it was her because it could have been literally anyone, and it doesn't matter. Like all of her scenes, it could be literally any girl, and it doesn't matter. Lenina has no arc, though my high school English teacher would insist she did.
Yeah.
So Lenina goes to try to fuck John.
She's pneumatic
right?
and meaty. That was a thing I wrote down. I don't have very many notes because
wait, did you say pneumatic?
Pneumatic and meaty.
I mean, she is supplied by air and made of meat.
I should say she and her corduroy pants are pretty.
Oh, God, Glenn, are you listening? God, I hope Nuzzlehouse is listening. He's going to love that corduroy shit. Okay. Oh, man. This is really an episode for our friends.
I haven't seen Glenn or Unsighted in our Discord, so I just assume they don't exist anymore.
Oh, you got to get back in the Discord. Come on. Go check out Nuzzlehouse and Unsighted, the internet's least reliable English lit podcast. Amy just got married. Congratulations, Amy.
Oh, isn't she the one that they did a Christmas episode? She was already like totally fucking plastered, and she said that he proposed, and then they just start the episode by crying.
Yes, that did happen.
Yeah,
it's my favorite Unsighted episode. You didn't even invite me to your wedding. Not only was I not your best man, I was not invited.
I wasn't invited to yours either, Ben. So
I didn't have a wedding. I got married at a courthouse.
I know.
And it was everything I could have hoped it could be.
Yeah, I just had 23 people.
My sister was still bawling the whole time and saying how beautiful it all was.
Oh my God.
Yeah, my sister is a giant baby.
Does she still listen to this? I assume she doesn't at this point.
I think she only listens to the books she's read.
I
don't think she's read this.
Okay, there you go.
So I think we're safe there, yeah. I'd tell her she's a giant baby. I just saw her this weekend and just told her she was a giant baby.
What,
you thought you could cry?
No, I thought I could be more inebriated on the podcast.
Oh.
Yeah.
You probably could be.
No, I don't think I could get to that point without, like, dying, Ben. I don't think I have it in me. Anyway, we're back to John. I guess we should get back on task. I don't want to.
So John, I think John goes insane, and he starts self-flagellating. And that means he whips himself.
Yeah.
So he's whipping himself, and a bunch of people come by to watch. And they're like really into it. They're like, this is sick. Like, I'm gonna whip myself too. Like, oh, I wonder how it feels. I'll whip you, and then you whip me. And then they just like, it's just a big whip fest in front of his house. And like everybody's wearing like their leathers, and it just, his whole house turns into like this leather bar, and it's so weird. And then Lenina shows up, and she's like, hey, give me a hug. And that's it. He just goes nuts, man. He just starts whipping so hard. Whip it good, whip it. I don't know the rest of the song. And then that just kicks off an orgy.
Yeah, as you do.
There's just an orgy. And someone like they're whipping. Everybody's just whipping themselves. And then somebody in the back shouts, orgy! And it just kicks off.
Orgy, porgy.
And John's like, fuck it. Orgy. And he orgies. And then he wakes up and he's like, my God, I have orgied.
Is that what he says? My God, I have orgied.
It's the most famous quote from the book. Everybody knows that. I don't know how you didn't read that. And he hangs himself. The end.
Yep, that's oh, yeah. Final thoughts, Ben. It sucked.
My final thoughts, Lenina, like, wow, cursed love life. It should have been called Lenina Jones' Diary, right? Am I right? She finally gets with the guy, and he just fucking kills himself.
So, I will say that getting put on a ban list was probably the best thing that ever happened to this book, because it means that all kinds of assholes will come out of the woodwork to defend this book to the death, even though it fucking sucks.
I think, there's interesting stuff. I mean, obviously, he predicted some things that exist in the world. We kind of downplayed... we focused on the plot a lot, and I don't think you're supposed to do that.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't have written a book then. Maybe you should have written a fucking science lecture. Make bullet points and give them to me. What if world no longer allowed birth? Whoa.
Do you want to try to rubric this?
You want to try to rubric this?
I want to try, because I think we need it to guide the discussion.
Okay. Guess I'll rubric it, even though I don't want to.
People like the rubric. I think people are into it.
Words about books.ninja.
Hang on, my computer's being all slow. Here, let me just okay, let me edit the old rubric. Okay. So let's talk content and ideas.
All right. Do I want to do a 3 or do I want to do a 2, Ben? It's a tough one.
I'm going to go with... this is a tough one. I'm going to go with a 3. Had I been alive in 1930 whatever, maybe a 4? Because it's tough for me to really gauge the impact this would have had on its audience.
Yeah, but here's the problem. Audience. We still have to be forced to read it today by the school system.
I don't think it has. I think there are definitely, like with every school book, and this is why I kind of don't value assigned reading that much at all. I don't really think there's a good way to do it. Even if you let kids pick their own books, then you can't really have the classroom discussion about it. I just...
And I'll pick something that's like 10 grades below. I'll grab a Goosebumps book and just blow through that.
I'll tell you what, though. I'm reading The Hellbound Heart in paperback, and that is like Goosebumps for adult. You should see the font on that thing. But anyway, yeah, I can't go any higher than a 3. Because the whole book, you say, like, being banned is the greatest thing that happened to it. And it's like... Yeah, because all it does is court controversy to me at this point. Like, there's a lot of ideas that are really shocking to somebody reading in 1930, and then they just don't ever resolve into a story that matters. Like, I don't know really why John kills himself other than something, we're not human enough. There's like this vague notion of like, there's something that the boss man says that's like, John is asking him for the right to be unhappy. And I think that's kind of the thesis statement of the book, is that the bad experiences of humanity are as valuable to us as the good experiences, maybe even more so. But like, the story doesn't convince me of that.
Yeah.
'Cause John has some pretty bad experiences and he doesn't seem better for it.
Yeah, in fact, some would say he seems a little worse for it because he's fucking dead.
Yeah, because like the whole thing of like finding him on a reservation and he's with a, like, I don't want to say this is like the plot of The Last Samurai, but like the whole like, I find myself, I find the human experience that I value in another culture, and then I choose that culture over my culture. Like, that's half of all books. So,
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Organization.
2.
I'm with you on a 2. The
Fucking
first 3.
slow, plotting, boring ass pacing. The beginning few chapters feel like a fucking textbook. I felt like I was listening to a textbook, but I wasn't learning things because the science was wrong.
Use of language.
Thinking of 3.
Can I go 4 for like unintentionally hilarious?
Sure, Ben. You want to add that orgy porgy?
I kind of do. What was the one about child sex? Bumple puppy or something? Oh, you know what? I convinced. Yeah, you know what? I'm down to a 3. More I thought about it, the more uncomfortable it made me.
Yeah.
I guess that's the point, though. So maybe I should be back up to a 4. Personal preference.
1.
I don't think I'm quite that far.
Fucking hated this fucking book.
So this is a weird one for me. So it's a 2. I can understand its appeal to others, but with like the caveat that with most school books, I think a lot of people feel like they have to say they like it or they're not intellectual. Like, I think this is one of those books that you're just supposed to read and enjoy. And if you don't enjoy it, then it must be because you're too dumb to have enjoyed it.
Yeah, you're one of those fucking epsilon gremlins. Or alternatively,
You
orgy
just named
porgy.
my next band. It was Epsilon Gremlins is fucking amazing. Okay. Epsilon Gremlins' first album, Orgy Porgy. Okay, recommendation strength.
2, I guess. Very niche
I went
audience
1.
of fucking loser, fucking book historians who want to jerk off about how great this book is and how we shouldn't ban books. It's like, okay, I agree. Let's just remove it from the curriculum. Not because it's controversial. We're not banning it. We're removing it because it's outdated and useless. But, you know, if you're one of those weirdos who really want to jerk off banned books or old books or whatever, there you go. There's your niche audience that wouldn't care about how shit this book is.
I give it a 1. I mean, I think, honestly, that this book has just kind of lost its relevance. There's a million books that do the theme better. I would guess even Aldous Huxley, were he alive today, probably wouldn't find it all that relevant anymore.
Probably because he'd be high as balls.
Yeah, I mean, and hey, that's awesome. But I just think there's books that do this better. It's kind of the To Kill a Mockingbird problem for me of like, To Kill a Mockingbird, yes, it's a good book. I mean, but is that the book we want to use to teach racial equality in 2023? And so my ask then is, Brave New World the book we want to use to teach about how valuable negatives, like how valuable the whole human experience is? Because that's the thing that's the closest I can come up to as a theme for this story. I think in general he just had a lot of ideas about how the world might become a utopia based on modern materialism And then you just yada yada, like, you got to appreciate the bad times too.
Okay, bye. I'm off to go flagellate myself to death. Goodbye.
Yeah, and like the whole, like, he learned by reading Shakespeare. It's like, well, what? How did he understand it? Honest question. How do you teach yourself how to read in the future, right? So Shakespeare's language is only becoming more distant from you. And you're a child growing up with no one teaching you. How do you get anything out of Shakespeare?
How do you teach yourself to read?
I know people. There's a guy on TikTok who's learning how to read. It's interesting.
How is he doing that, though? I'm sure he has some sort of guide, right?
Well, I mean, once you
can't just, like, I couldn't just hand someone a book and be like, there you go. Tell me what it says. I'll come back in a year. Like,
yeah,
you gotta know what those symbols mean.
Well, you have to have the word spelled out for you, and you have to have like a picture of what the word is, and you have to know the word. So, like, if you know the word cat, you see a cat, and you see cat spelled, you got a shot. If you got enough of those examples, you got a shot at deciphering this. But that doesn't work with Shakespeare, is what I'm saying. Anyway, I don't really care about the logistics of him learning Shakespeare. I just care about the reason Shakespeare was chosen as the thing he learns. And the only thing I can come up with is, like, people think Shakespeare's deep.
Oh, I thought it was to juxtapose, like, he's the old world that's somewhat like now, but definitely old even by the 1930s. And that's to juxtapose with the new world. Ooh, look at this guy wanting to settle down and have a family and not liking these orgies. Isn't that?
Well, that's the whole thing. Like, the book, for as long as it goes on, and there's some interesting stuff. Like, I actually think Bernard is an interesting character. Lenina is not. Helmholtz is like a self-insert fanfic, and
he does kind of come off as a hipster douche.
Yeah, and so, like, Bernard is the only one that has any complexity. He's the one that, like, reveals that he does actually just want everybody's approval, and his whole nonconformity was just a facade he put on to protect himself from getting his feelings hurt. And the whole Soma thing, like, it just doesn't ever convince you of, like, okay, yeah, you're telling me that the family unit, the true human bonding experience is a valuable experience, but, like, why? John doesn't really have any of those. He has his mother, who even she doesn't really understand anything about him. The Native Americans didn't talk to him because his mother deeply offended them. So what are these attachments he craves? You're telling me he read the complete works of Shakespeare and he craves that level of human attachment? Have you read Shakespeare?
Of course not.
No, because like everybody in a Shakespeare play meets and is in love or hates each other.
And sometimes they kill themselves.
Fantasized about? Always they kill themselves.
Hey now, sometimes they get killed.
Like, you're telling me John's out there reading The Taming of the Shrew. And he's like...
That's what I want.
He's like, if I could just get into that Petruchio grind set. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like every school book, it's just not as good as promised. It didn't teach me anything as a child. I grew up to be a podcaster, so I buy expensive microphones to support the economy, and I make a podcast that no one listens to
support the economy again.
Yeah, and I got a drawer full of 10 milligram Soma, and
yeah, Yeah, so in
Yeah, I didn't learn
conclusion,
anything.
the system works, and everything is fine, and let's all get naked and just
I mean, I get so sick of ending every episode of Words About Books like that.
Well, you know why you're sick of it, right? Because you didn't take your Soma yet.
Waka waka, da 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 da. Okay. So, I suppose we have now reached the point of the episode. I've been noticing our episodes lately. They don't end gracefully. They just kind of end. But there's no part 2 to this one, refreshingly. So this is the part of the episode where I must thank the patrons. If you're not a patron but you want to talk to us, you want to have a say in how things go on the podcast, hop in the Discord. We love suggestions. We're listening to everybody's ideas, and it's been great. But we do have a Patreon as well, if you would like to give us money. And if you would like to give us far too much money, I might even be willing, out of a sense of guilt, to shout you out on the podcast. And the people who have greased my palm are John Bierce, actual author of the Mage Errant series, The Rack, and an upcoming project. John also has a Patreon you can check out where he releases his short stories. I think the Mage Errant short story collection is the Mage Errant Universe short story collection is coming out soon, so look for that. We also have Isekai Sensei Sama of That Time I Got Reincarnated in the Same World as an Anime Podcast. James of the If You Want the Gravy blog, where James reviews everything. He should review that poisonous Fanta I drank in the previous episode of Words About Books.
Might be reviewing Eggo Brunch in a Jar, Ben.
Oh my god, that was real?
That was real.
Oh.
And it wasn't brunch in a jar, it was just syrup. Just tasted like syrup and alcohol. It fucking was. It
Why
was
it alcohol?
boring. Yeah, it was alcoholic.
What the hell is this?
You've never heard of this, Ben?
No. Well, this was an eventful Patreon thing. We also have. Wow, that just threw me all the way off. We got Shy with a Y on TikTok. We also have Jamie Walker. Jamie Walker is more humble than our other patrons, opting not to have me shout out a project. Thank you for that, Jamie. Nailed it. One and done. I bet we could convince somebody to make like a game on the App Store called Bumble Puppy. And then have them arrested. Yeah. And Bernie Mac